Oh, yeah, it's about time I head back to the studio to record a new episode. Let me just head on over. Oh, ooh, strawberries. Those are new. I thought I planted mushrooms here. Hmm, strange. Oh,
Oh, hey, Eric. How you doing?
hey Nick. I'm okay.
Yeah. Um, I'm,
Mm.
yeah. Have you been decorating by any chance?
No, wasn't me. No.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
Oh,
Yes.
yeah. Yeah,
Well,
I was kind of trying to do this on the dev server. I didn't think it made it all the way here.
right. Well, luckily, on this episode of HashiCraft, we can fix this because what we're going to do is we're going to have to look at how we can do multiple environments and manage things like a dev and test environment from our Terraform configuration. Come on, Eric. Let's get over to the studio and get all of this mess fixed up.
All right.
I'm kind of liking the colors, though. I don't know. Maybe we should keep it.
It starts to grow on you.
It
Oh,
does.
buy card.
All right.
So what are we gonna do today, Nick? How are we going to make sure I don't kawaii everything up again?
Well, yes. So what we're going to do is we're going to kind of look through the stuff that we looked at last time. So last time what we did was we built this configuration here. And we built the Terraform configuration which runs inside of Terraform Cloud. So we fixed some of the problems that we had where we kind of wanted to be able to run things, well, not on my computer, I think is the honest truth on that. And
That's the only place things ever work, though.
well, yes, and we might find that that's kind of very truthful as well. But we're going to look at how we can create multiple environments from the same configuration. And we're going to kind of take an approach where we want to use GitHub branches. So we can then do things like promoting our environments from dev into production and test and all of those things to make sure that, well, what we create is actually what we intended and not pink marshmallows. But let's begin.
All right.
So we're going to look at exactly the same configuration that we were looking at last time. And it's this branch here. We've got the links below for that. But what we need to do is we need to make some modifications. So at the moment, when we're looking at this configuration and we set everything up, we set up the workspace and we were using this name. A name requires an absolute workspace. So here it's called Terraform Minecraft Azure Containers underscore master, and that's exactly the name that will be inside of Terraform Cloud.
Can you show me?
Yeah. So if I just look over here and go over to my Terraform Cloud, it's in one of these tabs, way too many tabs, but there we go. So this is our
Okay.
production environment. So what we want to
Yep.
do here is we want to kind of change this because we want this to be a little bit more dynamic. So last time when we were setting things up, we set this workspace name, and the name is exactly how it will be inside of Terraform Cloud. So we have a name there, Azure Containers Master, and I have a workspace here of Azure Containers Master. Okay, simple one-to-one relationship.
Yep.
But we need this to be more dynamic. So what we do is we're going to change this, and we're going to change this to prefix.
Okay.
And what a
So that means that this will be prefixed to whatever workspace we create.
right. But this is kind of where we kind of need to start to think about things and learn a little bit more tech terminology.
Okay.
Because this Terraform block is actually only used when I'm running things locally. When I'm
All
running
right.
them inside of Terraform Cloud, it's going to just use the workspace as it exists there. But this is only for my local interaction. So what I need to do is I'm going to use this prefix, and this allows me to set things up dynamically. But I also need to start taking into account Terraform workspaces on my local environment. So let's run Terraform workspace list. So it's telling me that I need to initialize, and that's because I've just changed my workspace declaration there in the back end to prefix. So let me just run that.
Okay.
And I'm running Terraform init, and it's saying to me that I can now use named workspaces. What is the name of the default? Well, what we're going to do is we're going to follow a convention which uses a branch-based approach. So the branch that we use is going to be the same as the Terraform workspace. So
that's going to be a GitHub or a Git branch then, right?
That's correct, yes. So
okay.
that's all linked up there. So now our master branch has a Terraform workspace called master, and that links to the workspace in Terraform Cloud. So you can see the three relationships there.
Okay, so we have a Git branch called master.
Yes.
We have a Terraform workspace called master on our local machine.
Yes.
And then we have a Terraform workspace on Terraform Cloud with the prefix.
Yes.
And master or dev.
That's correct, yes.
Okay.
So now what we can do though is we can create a branch, because we want to create a Git branch for our new workspace. So let's just do that. And we're going to just do that in Git. So I'm just going to do Git checkout -b, and I'm going to call this dev because we're going to create you a dev environment, Eric.
Oh,
yes, exactly.
That'll make things less pink.
Yeah, well, with a bit of luck anyway. So we have that new environment now. So we've created that new dev branch. So what we need to do is we need to create a workspace inside of Terraform Cloud, which is also a dev branch. So
okay.
I created this just this morning when I realized what you'd been up to, and just to kind of save a little bit of time, but it's exactly the same processes that we went through in the last video. What we are going to change, however, are two settings. So the first thing that we're going to change is we're going to change the settings in general around the apply method. So the last video, what we were doing for our production environment is we would do a Terraform plan. We would have a manual configuration step where we're clicking a button and that does the apply, which is exactly the thing that you want to do in a production environment. But this is dev. If we break dev, we are the ones who suffer. So we can actually take a little bit of an easier approach, and we're going to use auto apply. So auto apply will automatically apply the changes regardless. And that's great for dev. So we're going to change that. Save those settings. The second thing that we need to change is we need to point Terraform to the correct version control branch. And this is going to be dev. So this is going to actually complain at me in just a moment because, well, if I try and save that, it's going to say that the branch doesn't exist. And that's, well, because I haven't pushed it yet, Eric. So let me quickly bounce back over here and we can finish up our code. We have the workspaces. Everything's set up there nicely with the prefix. The last thing that we need to set about is this dynamic element. So for example, if we look here, Eric, at our Azure resource group, then we're always going to be applying a configuration to the resource group HashiCraft test. And that'll be for our production or a dev branch and all of those things. And we don't want to do that. We want to be able to make that dynamic.
Yeah, that's pretty much what got us into this whole trouble and made everything pink in the first place.
Exactly. So what we can do is we can define a variable. So I can use the variable block, variable. And we can see that here. And we're going to call this environment. Environment. And I can set a default value. Default equals dev. So the variable stanza in Terraform allows you to define environment variables, and those variables will kind of be I can use them to substitute elements at runtime. The actual values for those variables, I'm going to set those in the workspace, and you'll see me set that up in just a moment. But for now, let's have a look at how we can use it. Because I've got this defined now, I can use this interpolation syntax inside of my resource group name. So I can specify that just like this, var.environment. And that sets things up nice and easy. So what will happen at runtime is that the name for the Azure resource group will now be HashiCraft test and environment. But there's just one small problem with that. And the problem is that I don't have my resource group called HashiCraft test master because we created it on a previous run. So I can use some more interpolation and I can actually write a conditional expression. So let's have a look. What I can say is, I can say if the variable.environment is equal to master, then what I want to do is have no suffix at all. However, if it isn't, what I want to do is just set the value of the suffix, variable.environment.
So this is just to make sure that we don't delete the world that we have right now again.
Exactly. I mean, if you were creating this from fresh, you would probably just set everything up from the beginning to have the resource group of master. I think it makes more sense that way. It's just easier to have that reference.
And more clean.
Much more clean. So we need to specify exactly the same thing here, and we're going to do that. So we're just creating that interpolation, var.environment, and that's going to be master. So if it equals master, we don't want a suffix. If it doesn't equal master, we want to use the value of environment as a suffix. And that's it. That's all we need to do there. What we need to do now is to create a new workspace, and we're going to set things up in there. So let's just do that. So we're going to do this Terraform workspace list. That's going to show us the current workspaces that we have. I want to do a new one. So I'm going to do Terraform workspace new, and I'm going to call it dev. So you can do that there, dev. It's created my new dev workspace. Now, if I go over to Terraform Cloud, you can see that it's also created the workspace for me inside of Terraform Cloud. And it's done that automatically for me because those two commands are linked there. So I need to go through and just set up some settings and some variables. So the first variable that I want to add is our environment. Because if you remember back, what we were saying is we can't use the workspace element. We need to use a specific variable called variables. So we're setting environment. And what I also need to do is I need to add the environment variables for my environment. So things like the Azure keys and stuff like that. Like you might be thinking, well, why doesn't it just copy those? I think there's a good reason. And I think quite often what a lot of folks are going to do is they're going to use separate accounts as well as separate environments for difference in production and tests. So it's not such a bad thing. It only take me 2 seconds to do that. Okay, so I've just created those variables there. And what I need to do is I just need to check out a couple of settings. So the first setting that I want to change is my apply method. So the standard apply method is manual, and that's kind of what we saw last time where we have to manually hit that button. Now, we don't need to be able to do that this time because we're running in a dev environment, so we can kind of take a few shortcuts. So I'm going to click auto apply, and that means that whenever I commit any changes to GitHub, it's automatically going to create those things for me. I'm going to save that. And lastly, I just need to set some version control settings. So I need to correct my environment to version control. I'm going to use the same repository and what I need to set is the VCS branch. So the VCS branch is going to be dev because that's my branch that I've got locally. So I don't have that yet. So let me just push those changes. Git status. I'm going to let me just push that. So git status. I'm going to add those changes. And I'm committing that. updated to add new dev branch. And I can push that to dev branch inside there. And then now that's in GitHub, what we can do is we can specify the dev branch there. And what that is going to do is we're now going to get a build whenever we go to this dev branch over here. I've got too many tabs open, Eric. I swear to you, it's just computers.
Multitasking, Nick, it's not your thing.
It's really not. So we're waiting for the configuration there. And that's just going to take just a second while Terraform refreshes itself. But we're going to get all of that set up. Okay, so let's just run a Terraform plan now. Terraform plan. So what's happening here is we're running that Terraform plan, and it's going to be running against Terraform Cloud. None of the kind of the environment variables or anything is local, and that's kind of the beauty of this integration with Terraform CLI and Terraform Cloud. And that's just going to take a short minute there to complete. And you can see it's done.
There it goes.
Yeah, so we got the plan. So let's look at our calculated environment variables. Let's have a look here. Okay, there we go. So we have Azure Resource Group, and you can see that the suffix is _dev. And that's exactly what we wanted. That's calculated based on the workspace name. And if we look at this one here, let's have a look. The storage account, we've got a storage account name again, HashiCraft Dev. And we're just kind of looking through the plan there. We can see everything. I think that, Eric, looks perfect.
What about that DNS name label, Nick? That doesn't look very dynamic.
Ah, right, yes. Let's quickly just change that. So just down here, we will find, where is it? DNS label name. There we go. So we can just change that, and we can apply exactly the same thing. So I'm just going to use that var.environment. If it's master, don't want to use a suffix at all. If it isn't master, then I'm going to use the
You flipped the question mark and a colon.
Good catch. That's why pair programming is always worthwhile. Environment. There we go. And that's it. That's it, good buddy. Let's see what that does. So we're all done. And what we can actually do is we can just push this, and that build should automatically happen inside of Terraform. So, well, let's give it a go. Terraform. Oh no. Terraform. I don't know what I'm doing. Git add dot git commit. And we're going to add a label, updated DNS name, git push. Right. So let's take a look inside of Terraform now. So in just a second, what we're going to see is we're going to see that plan, and there it goes, it's running. So the plan is going to always run, but this time what's going to happen is we're going to do this auto apply. So instead of waiting for that confirmation step, this is our dev environment. It's just going to YOLO. And there we go. It's done the plan. The plan succeeded. 6 resources to change, and it's going to do the apply. Okay, so that apply has finished. And we can see there that if we look down, it's created 6 new resources. And if I quickly look over at Azure and just refresh that screen there, you can also see that we have our new resource group, HashiCraft Task Dev, and we've also got our new storage account, which is prefixed dev, and our new container, which is prefixed dev. So, Eric, we're pretty much good to go here.
So that's my new world then.
That's your new world, and you can make it as well. I'm thinking we're going to promote this to production. I dig this, Eric. I'm liking it. I'm liking it.
Did you notice that the room we're currently standing in looks like a cake?
It does, and that's making me hungry, and it's time for lunch, but we should probably crack on and get this sorted. Right.
All right.
Last step. So what we want to do is we want to promote this to production, and we want to see how we're going to do that. So what we're going to do first is we just need to make one small modification to the environment that we set up last time for our master environment. And what we're going to do is we're just going to add that in variable. So that environment variable, environment, and set that to master. And let me just quickly recap on why we need that. So just recapping. When we're running locally, we can use the environment variable terraform.workspace. When we're running inside of Terraform Cloud, it doesn't understand that. So it's just going to be using default. Now, what we need to do then is we need to do that substitution. So we're going to use the substitution of environment, and we're just going to pick up whatever the branch is that we're setting there. So in this instance, we're setting it to dev. That's the default, but we're overriding it and setting it to master. And
Okay.
that's great. So if I go over to GitHub, and I can see there that I've got my new dev branch, and I can do my PR. So I'm going to create a PR.
A sensible message.
With a sensible message, as always. No description provided. Most sensible message. And what you can see is that that master build has already kicked off automatically. So Terraform is going to automatically do a plan for us because we created that PR. And we can see there that we've got, is that, oh, this is not the right one. Has that kicked off? Let me just click the button in here. So what we can see is that Terraform has automatically created a plan for us. And, well, it's telling us that there are no changes to be made because we haven't made any changes to the infrastructure, because actually the production environment already had that rather pleasant plugin that you added, Eric. But we can see when we refresh our PR there that everything is fine. The checks are successful. There are no changes, and I can go ahead and merge that. And we're good. We are finished. We've kind of learned quite a bit in this episode, I think, Eric.
Yeah.
Well, I think we've done pretty well. We've learned.
This opens up so many possibilities, though. We could have like a staging server or a legacy one. We could have a 1.12 or 1.15.
Yeah, and it's a pretty common way of managing things. I mean, that kind of branch-based approach and having multiple environments, it's pretty much what everybody wants to do. And on that, I might go and create myself a test environment because I want to see what other plugins are available. So I will, I'm gone. I will see you next time, good buddy.
All right. Well, bye, Nick. And thank you, everyone, for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe. And we hope to see you next week for the next episode.
That's right. Like and subscribe and smash that bell button.
Oh. No. Oh. I'm fighting with the cards, Nick.